A Day in the Life of an Old West Town Marshal. Welcome back to Western Frontiers, where we journey through the authentic experiences of those who shaped the American West. Today we're pinning on the badge of one of the most iconic yet misunderstood figures of frontier towns, the town marshal. While Hollywood has painted marshals as quick-draw artists engaged in daily shootouts, the reality was far more complex and in many ways more dangerous. These men walked a fine line between enforcing often unpopular laws and maintaining peace in communities where violence could erupt at any moment. What was daily life really like for these frontier peacekeepers? Let's strap on a six-shooter and discover what a day in the life of a town marshal was truly like in the 1870s and 1880s. The position of town marshal emerged as Western settlements grew from mining camps and cattle towns into established communities. Unlike county sheriffs who were elected and had jurisdiction over entire counties, town marshals were typically appointed by town councils or mayors to maintain order within town limits. The need for dedicated law enforcement became particularly acute in the 1870s, as railroads connected once isolated frontier towns to the wider world. Cattle towns like Dodge City, Abilene, and Wichita saw seasonal influxes of cowboys with months of pay burning holes in their pockets. Mining towns experienced similar challenges with miners flush with gold dust looking for entertainment. A marshal's authority came from town ordinances rather than territorial or federal law. This meant that what was illegal in one town might be perfectly legal in another just miles away. Many marshals operated with minimal formal training, their qualification often being simply the respect they commanded and their ability to handle trouble. The pay varied widely, from as little as $30 per month in smaller settlements to $150 or more in rowdier towns with higher risk. Many supplemented their income by collecting percentages of fines or taxes. Despite the danger, the position offered something rare on the frontier: steady employment that didn't require backbreaking physical labor. A town marshal's day typically began around sunrise, though many had been up during the night responding to disturbances. The morning would start with a check of the jail cells, tending to any prisoners arrested the night before. These might include drunks sleeping it off, cowboys who'd gotten too rowdy, or more serious offenders awaiting transfer to county or territorial authorities. After ensuring prisoners were secure and fed a basic meal, the marshal would make his morning rounds. This wasn't just about looking for trouble, it was about being seen. A visible presence often prevented problems before they started. He'd check in with businesses as they opened, particularly saloons and gambling houses where trouble most frequently erupted. Mid-morning might find the marshal at his office, often just a small desk in the corner of the jail, handling paperwork. Contrary to popular belief, law enforcement generated considerable documentation even then. Arrest records, fine collections, and reports to the town council all required attention. By late morning, the marshal would likely be handling minor disputes between townspeople. These could range from property line disagreements to accusations of cheating in business deals. A good marshal tried to resolve these conflicts before they escalated, serving as mediator as much as enforcer. Noon would often find the marshal taking his meal at a local restaurant, strategically choosing locations where he could observe the town while eating. Many marshals made a point of dining in public, both to maintain visibility and to demonstrate they weren't playing favorites among local businesses. The afternoon typically involved more active patrolling, particularly as saloons filled and card games got underway. In cattle towns, the marshal paid special attention to the areas frequented by cowboys, while in mining towns, the focus might be on establishments catering to miners coming off shift. A key afternoon task was checking on strangers in town, not to harass them, but to establish their business and set expectations for behavior. Many marshals made a point of introducing themselves to newcomers, making clear what would and wouldn't be tolerated within town limits. As evening approached, the marshal would often deputize additional help if needed, particularly on paydays or weekends. These deputies might be regular citizens who took on the role when needed, or in larger towns, permanent assistants. The evening hours were typically the most demanding. As drinking and gambling increased, so did the potential for trouble. The marshal would make regular rounds of saloons, gambling halls, and dance houses, watching for signs of impending trouble, heated arguments, excessive drunkenness, or cheating accusations. When confrontations occurred, a good marshal tried to diffuse situations with words first. Contrary to Hollywood depictions, most marshals avoided gunplay whenever possible. A reputation for fairness and firmness was far more effective than a reputation for violence. Late night would find the marshal continuing his rounds until the saloons closed, sometimes as late as 2 or 3 in the morning. Only then might he catch a few hours of sleep, often at the jail rather than at home, to be available if trouble erupted. The town marshal faced dangers far beyond the dramatic shootouts depicted in films. The greatest risk wasn't the notorious gunslinger, but rather the ordinary citizen who'd had too much to drink and was carrying a weapon. Enforcing the law often meant confronting armed men who outnumbered the marshal significantly. In cattle towns, a single marshal might face dozens of cowboys fresh off the trail. In mining towns, labor disputes could put the marshal between angry miners and company interests. Political pressures created another layer of challenge. The marshal served at the pleasure of the town council, which meant balancing strict enforcement with the economic realities of the town. Saloons and gambling halls generated significant tax revenue, creating pressure to allow certain activities to continue even when they skirted the law. The physical toll was substantial. Many marshals suffered from sleep deprivation, working day and night during busy periods. The constant vigilance led many to rely on alcohol or other substances to cope with stress, creating its own set of problems. Perhaps most challenging was the isolation. A marshal often had to enforce unpopular decisions, making him a target of resentment. Few marshals served for more than a few years before the strain became too great. Some lesser-known facts. What any don't realize is that gun control was actually common in Western towns. Many municipalities had ordinances requiring visitors to check their weapons at the marshal's office or local livery stable while in town limits. The famous gunfight at the OK Corral in Tombstone actually began as an attempt to enforce such an ordinance. Contrary to the lone lawman myth, marshals in busier towns often had multiple deputies and worked closely with county sheriffs and federal marshals when jurisdictional lines blurred. One of the most effective marshals of the era was actually a former slave. Deputy Marshal Bass Reeves served for 32 years in the Indian Territory, now Oklahoma, arresting over 3,000 felons and killing 14 outlaws in self-defense. His success came not from quick-draw skills but from intelligence, disguise tactics, and knowledge of multiple Native American languages. Hollywood rarely shows the administrative side of a marshal's duties, but collecting taxes, licensing businesses, and even conducting the census were often part of the job description in smaller towns. The town marshal walked a precarious line between order and chaos during a transformative period in American history. Far from the simplistic gunslinger of Hollywood, these men were peacekeepers, mediators, and community builders who helped transform wild frontier outposts into stable towns. Next time, we'll dig deep into more occupations of the Old West. Until then, this is P.W. Moore, and around here, we're keeping the Old West alive and bringing you back in history one story at a time. If you enjoyed this glimpse in the exciting life of an Old West marshal, hit subscribe and give us a thumbs up today. If you're feeling particularly adventurous, leave a comment with something you'd like to see us cover.